wish I don't wake up. And I'm like, don't say that. What I'm supposed to do? But God knows, I didn't know he was going to take my child's life. It's killing me so bad.
My sister's been shot. 4 words, barely audible through tears, from a 12-year-old boy who just witnessed the unthinkable. The 911 dispatcher leaned in, trying to make sense of what she was hearing that January morning in South Sacramento. When deputies rushed into that house on Orchard Woods Circle, they found 19-year-old Dajha Richards fighting for her life. Blood pooled beneath her as her 4-month-old son cried nearby. Think about that for a second. A baby watching his mom die. That's the reality of domestic violence. As paramedics worked frantically, Daja did something incredible. With what little strength she had left, she looked right at a deputy and said 2 words. Damion Horton. Just like that, she named her killer, her boyfriend, her baby's father. Here's the thing that'll keep you up tonight. Just 6 days earlier, Daja had posted on Facebook about how much she loved this man. 6 days from "I love him to death" to being shot in the chest. That's how fast these situations explode. That's how quickly "I love you" can turn into "I'll kill you." Look, we've all seen the crime shows where they piece together who did it over 45 minutes, but in real life, victims often know exactly who's going to hurt them. They've seen it coming. They've felt the threat building. And like Daja, they're often not believed until it's too late. Tonight we're talking about the warning signs everyone missed. The red flags that were waving for months. The system that failed a young mother, and the family left to raise a baby who will never know his mom. Welcome to our channel, and Daja's story might just save someone you love. Before Dajha Richards became a victim, she was already fighting battles most of us can't imagine. Born with sickle cell anemia, Dajha's life was a constant cycle of pain, hospital stays, and blood transfusions. If you don't know about sickle cell, it's brutal. Your blood cells twist into these crescent shapes that get stuck in your vessels, causing excruciating pain. For Daja, this wasn't just an occasional thing. This was her normal. What makes someone resilient like that? How do you smile through pain that would break most adults, let alone a teenager? For Daja, it was family. Her mother, grandmother, and stepfather created this protective circle around her. They were her rock, her foundation. Her little brother Kenneth looked up to her like she hung the moon. This wasn't a perfect family. They had their struggles like anyone else, but they showed up for each other. Always. Her stepfather, Andre, shared a story that tells you everything you need to know about who Daja was. The night of her senior prom, she was in the hospital, not just sick, but in a medically induced coma because of a sickle cell crisis. The doctors had put her under to manage the pain. When she woke up, everyone assumed prom was off the table. I mean, obviously, right? Not for Daja. She just got up, looked at us and said, "I'm going to prom," Andre recalled, shaking his head in amazement. The doctors said no way. Her mother said no way. But Daja, she found a dress, did her makeup right there in the hospital room, and walked into that prom like a queen. That was her. Unstoppable. This wasn't just teenage stubbornness. This was a young woman who refused to let her illness define her life, who grabbed at normal moments whenever she could, who fought for joy. It's important you understand this about Daja before we go further. She wasn't weak. She wasn't naive. She was a warrior who had been fighting her whole life. So how does someone that strong end up with someone like Damion Horton? It happened during her junior year of high school. Daja was 16, Damion was 18. They met through mutual friends at a party in the neighborhood. By all accounts, Damion came across as charming, attentive, and protective. For a girl who'd spent her life being protected because of her illness, Damion offered something different. A chance to be the one being taken care of for a change. What none of them realized was that this care was the first step in a pattern of control that would eventually turn deadly. What looked like protection was actually possession. What seemed like concern was actually surveillance. But that's how it always starts, isn't it? Not with fists, but with flowers. Not with threats, but with, "I just worry about you." And for Daja, a young woman who'd spent her life fighting just to stay alive, the attention must have felt like a relief. Finally, someone who saw her as more than her illness. Someone who wanted to fight for her. The tragic irony? She'd eventually be fighting for her life against the very person who promised to protect it. When Damion Horton stepped into Daja's life, he didn't just charm her, he worked the whole family. Damion talked about his plans, how he was going to start a business, buy a house, give Daja the life she deserved. He spoke with this confidence that made you believe him. He had that swagger, that charisma that can blind people to red flags. And let's be real, the family wanted to believe him. They wanted someone good for their girl who'd been through so much already. Daja's stepfather, Andre, was initially the most skeptical. Something felt off, he admitted. But I couldn't put my finger on it, and Daja was so happy. After everything with her health, how could I take that away from her? What none of them knew was that Damion already had a record, a 2016 conviction for attempted robbery. He'd managed to keep that part of his life hidden from them. The charming boyfriend by day had a whole other side they never saw. The first cracks started showing about 6 months in. Daja began canceling plans last minute. Her phone would blow up with texts when she was with family. She started dressing differently, more conservative, less of her own style. He'd call constantly when she was with us, her cousin remembered. At first it seemed sweet, like he missed her. Then it got weird. He needed to know exactly who she was with, what she was doing. If she didn't answer right away, he'd keep calling until she did. These are classic control tactics. But when you're in it, especially as a teenager, it's easy to mistake jealousy for love. It's easy to think, he just cares so much. Then came the isolation. Friends Daja had known since elementary school suddenly weren't around anymore. Damion always had a reason. This one was a bad influence. That one was trying to get with him. Another one didn't respect their relationship. One by one, he cut the threads of her support system until the only constant person in her life was him. Classic abuser playbook, but happening so gradually that no one pieced it together. The real turning point came when Daja announced she was pregnant at 18. The family had mixed feelings. They were concerned about the timing, worried about her health with sickle cell, unsure if the relationship was solid enough. But Daja? She was glowing. Pregnancy was especially risky with her condition, but she saw this baby as a new beginning. She thought having a son would change everything, her mother said, wiping away tears during an interview. She believed a baby would make him settle down, make him treat her better. She told me, "Mom, now we'll be a real family." It's a hope many women in troubled relationships cling to, that a child will transform their partner, that fatherhood will bring out the best in him, that somehow a baby will fix what's broken. For Daja, the pregnancy represented stability, commitment, a future. What she couldn't see was that bringing a child into an already volatile relationship rarely calms the waters. More often, it creates the perfect storm. By the time Daja gave birth to her son in September 2018, the girl her family knew was fading away. She lost so much weight, her mother recalled, showing photos of Daja before and after. At first we thought it was just the pregnancy, then maybe the stress of being a new mom. But it was more than that. She was disappearing right in front of us. The physical changes were just the beginning. The Daja who used to laugh easily, who'd dance around the kitchen while cooking, who'd spend hours on the phone with cousins, that girl was gone. In her place was someone jumpy, distracted, constantly checking her phone. Her grandmother noticed it during Sunday dinners. She'd flinch if someone dropped a fork. Who flinches at a fork unless they're used to ducking from something else? Then came the bruises, a mark on her wrist, a bruise on her upper arm, always with an explanation ready. I bumped into the door. I fell carrying the baby. It's just from the IV at my last hospital stay. When you're dealing with someone who has a chronic illness like sickle cell, it's easy to attribute physical changes to the disease. Easy to believe the excuses. Easy to miss what's happening behind closed doors. But Dajha's 15-year-old cousin Keisha wasn't buying it. Teenagers notice things adults miss sometimes, and Keisha was watching closely. One night while Dajha was bathing the baby, Keisha picked up her cousin's phone when a notification popped up. What she saw chilled her to the bone. It was Instagram DMs from Damion, Keisha told reporters, still visibly shaken by the memory. He was threatening to put her in the ground if she ever tried to leave him, saying he'd take care of anyone in her family who tried to help her. There were dozens of messages like this going back months. Keisha showed the messages to Daja's grandmother, who confronted Daja that same night. The response she got haunts her to this day. "Granny, you don't know what he's capable of doing." These words that acknowledge the danger while simultaneously accepting it as inevitable. Words that revealed Daja was living in constant fear. The family tried to intervene. They offered her a place to stay. They suggested calling the police. Her stepfather even threatened to confront Damion himself. But Daja resisted every attempt to help. She was terrified, her mother explained, not just for herself, but for us, for her baby. Damion had convinced her that if she left, he'd hurt everyone she loved. This is the twisted reality of domestic violence. Victims often stay not out of weakness, but out of a desperate attempt to protect others. They become the human shield between their abuser and the rest of their family. Then, on January 2nd, 2019, Daja posted something strange on Facebook. "I know me and Damion go through shit, but everybody and they mamas know I love dat boy to death. I know my baby a hothead, and I would really lose my fucking mind if some happened to my baby daddy for real. It's sad. Half these babies can't even grow up knowing they parents. Everyone is dying left and right. This shit is getting scary." Let's break this down for a second. I love dat boy to death. An eerily prophetic choice of words. My baby a hothead, minimizing abuse is just having a temper. Half these babies can't even grow up knowing they parents' fear about her son growing up without a father. Everyone is dying left and right, a sense of impending doom. This wasn't just a random post. This was a woman trying to convince herself that staying was the right choice. This was someone publicly pledging loyalty to her abuser, perhaps hoping he'd see it and calm down. This was Daja trying to normalize what was happening to her because facing the full truth was too terrifying. 6 days later, she was dead. Something changed in Daja during that first week of January 2019. Maybe it was the new year, maybe it was looking at her baby and realizing what kind of life they were living. Maybe it was just that she'd reached her breaking point. Whatever triggered it, people close to her noticed a shift. She stopped making excuses for him, her cousin told reporters. Before, if he called her names or pushed her, she'd say, "He's just stressed," or "He didn't mean it." But that last week, she started calling it what it was. Text messages recovered from her phone show a woman who was finally acknowledging her reality. On January 4th, she texted her best friend, "I can't keep living like this. I'm scared all the time." 2 days later, she reached out to her cousin. "I'm taking the baby and going to Mom's tomorrow. I'm done." The family mobilized quickly. Her mother cleared out the spare bedroom. Her stepfather took the day off work to help move her things. Her grandmother prepared to watch the baby while they got everything settled. But Daja never showed up. I called her all day, her mother remembered, voice cracking. Straight to voicemail. I knew something was wrong, I just knew it. What they didn't know, what police would discover only after her death, was that Damion had seen those texts. He'd been monitoring her phone for months using spyware, every plan she made, every cry for help, every attempt to escape. He saw it all. And here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. While investigating Dajha's murder, detectives found something in her purse that changed everything they thought they knew about her final days. Hidden in a side pocket was a folder containing her birth certificate, her son's birth certificate, social security cards, medical records, and bank statements. She had been gathering the essential documents needed to leave. Even more revealing, a half-completed application for a restraining order was found on her laptop. She had started the process of legally protecting herself, typing out detailed accounts of Horton's abuse, incidents going back months that she'd never reported to police. But she never submitted it. This is heartbreakingly common, explained a domestic violence counselor consulted for this story. Victims often make multiple attempts to leave before they actually do. They gather courage, make plans, then fear pulls them back. The most dangerous time for a victim is when their abuser senses they're about to leave. Dajha was caught in that terrible limbo, knowing she needed to escape but terrified of what would happen if she tried. She was right to be afraid. January 8, 2019, around 9 a.m. Dajha was home with her 4-month-old son and 12-year-old brother. Her mother had left for work. Her stepfather was on a job site across town. According to her brother's later testimony, Damion Horton showed up unannounced. He was agitated, demanding to know why Dajha wasn't answering his calls. When he saw her packing a bag, everything escalated. They were arguing in the bedroom, her brother told police. I was in the living room with the baby. I heard her say she was leaving, that she couldn't do this anymore. Then he started yelling that she wasn't taking his son anywhere. What happened next happened fast. Horton pulled out a gun. Daja tried to run. Her brother heard her scream, "No, please!" Then a single gunshot. When her brother ran to the bedroom, he found Daja on the floor, clutching her chest. Horton looked at the boy, then at the baby, and fled without saying a word. The 12-year-old grabbed his sister's phone and dialed 911. "My sister's been shot," he told the dispatcher, his young voice steady despite the horror unfolding around him. "Please hurry, she's bleeding a lot." While waiting for help to arrive, the boy did something remarkable. He picked up his infant nephew and moved him to another room, away from his mother's blood. Even in trauma, he was trying to protect the baby from seeing too much. When deputies arrived minutes later, Dajha was still conscious. She locked eyes with one of them and clearly stated, "Damion Horton shot me." Those 4 words would become what's legally known as a dying declaration, one of the few exceptions to the hearsay rule in court. Because she spoke them believing death was imminent, they would be admissible evidence against Horton. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but the bullet had done too much damage. Dajha Richards was pronounced dead at 2:17 p.m., leaving behind a 4-month-old son who would never remember his mother's face and a 12-year-old brother who would never forget her final moments. Have you ever wanted to help someone in danger but didn't know how? Comment yes if you wish you knew the right steps to take. As Dajha fought for her life in the hospital, the hunt for Damion Horton was already underway. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Department deployed everything they had: SWAT teams, K-9 units, helicopter surveillance. They plastered his face across every news channel, social media platform, and digital billboard in the area. Deputies went door to door in the neighborhood, warning residents to stay inside. "We considered him armed and extremely dangerous," the lead detective said. "He'd already shown he was willing to kill. We had no reason to believe he wouldn't do it again if cornered." But Horton had vanished. The gun was gone. His car was found abandoned at a mall parking lot miles away. His phone was turned off. It was like he'd disappeared into thin air. Then came the bombshell that shocked even veteran investigators. While executing a search warrant at the home of Horton's mother, 37-year-old Yolanda Smith, detectives discovered something disturbing. Text messages showing she had actively helped her son escape after the shooting. She'd picked him up from the mall, given him money, and arranged for him to stay with relatives in Oakland. It's one thing to love your child unconditionally, the prosecutor would later say during Smith's trial. It's another thing entirely to help them evade justice after taking someone else's child away forever. While Daja's family was planning her funeral, Horton's family was planning his getaway. The betrayal cut deep for Daja's loved ones. How could a mother do that? Daja's grandmother asked during an interview, her voice breaking. How could she look at what her son did to our baby and still choose to protect him? For more than 24 hours, Horton remained at large. Then, on January 9th, he suddenly surrendered to authorities. No one knows exactly what changed his mind, whether it was pressure from other family members, fear of being caught, or possibly even remorse. The gun was never recovered. Meanwhile, the South Sacramento community erupted in grief and outrage. A candlelight vigil drew hundreds of people to Meadowview Park, many wearing purple, the color representing domestic violence awareness. Daja's photo, surrounded by flowers and teddy bears, became the centerpiece of a makeshift memorial. "This happens too often and we stay quiet too much," said a local activist addressing the crowd. "How many more have to die before we start talking about what's happening behind closed doors?" Many who attended shared their own stories of surviving abuse or losing loved ones to domestic violence. The vigil became not just a memorial for Daja, but a rallying cry for change. For Daja's family, the pain was compounded by practical realities. Her mother suddenly found herself raising a 4-month-old grandson while trying to support a traumatized 12-year-old who had witnessed the unthinkable. There were funeral expenses, therapy costs, and the everyday challenges of caring for an infant. The community stepped up, raising over $30,000 through a GoFundMe campaign to help with expenses and to establish a trust fund for Daja's son. "That baby is all we have left of her," her mother told reporters, cradling her grandson during an interview. "I look at him sometimes and I see her smile, her eyes. It breaks my heart that he'll never know her." In September 2021, after multiple delays due to COVID-19 and legal maneuvering, Damion Horton finally faced a jury. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with Daja's dying declaration serving as the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. The defense tried to paint the shooting as an accident, claiming the gun went off during a struggle, but the physical evidence told a different story. The bullet's trajectory showed Daja had been backing away when she was shot. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning their verdict: guilty on all counts, first-degree murder, discharging a firearm causing death, being a felon in possession of a firearm. In March 2022, a judge sentenced Horton to 76 years and 4 months to life in prison, effectively ensuring he would die behind bars. His mother, Yolanda Smith, received 3 years for being an accessory after the fact and violating her parole. Justice was served, but for Daja's family, no sentence could fill the void left by her absence. Daja's story follows a pattern that domestic violence experts see over and over again. It's a cycle as predictable as it is deadly. "Abuse rarely starts with violence," explains Dr. Maya Collins, who's worked with domestic violence survivors for 15 years. "It starts with isolation, with control, with making you doubt yourself. By the time the physical abuse begins, you're already trapped in an emotional prison." The cycle typically moves from tension building to explosion, to a honeymoon phase where the abuser apologizes, promises to change, and temporarily becomes the person their victim fell in love with. This creates a powerful psychological hook, the hope that the real person will return permanently. So why do victims stay? It's rarely as simple as just leave. Fear is the primary reason, Dr. Collins says, and it's rational fear. Statistics show that the most dangerous time for a victim is when they attempt to leave. Abusers would rather kill their partners than lose control over them. Beyond fear, there's shame. Many victims believe they somehow caused or deserved the abuse. There's financial dependence, especially when children are involved. There's love, yes, love, for the person their abuser once was, or occasionally still pretends to be. And there are cultural barriers. In some communities, domestic problems are considered private matters. Reporting abuse might be seen as betraying your family or community. Religious beliefs about marriage being forever can trap victims in dangerous situations. For young mothers like Daja, there's also the powerful desire to keep their child's family intact. The fear that leaving means depriving their child of a father, or worse, sharing custody with an abuser who might harm the child to punish the mother. What makes Daja's case so heartbreaking is that she was trying to leave. She recognized the danger. She was taking steps to escape. She just ran out of time. Tag someone who needs to hear this message. Your instincts about danger are valid. Trust them. Today, Daja's son is 6 years old. He's being raised by her mother, surrounded by photos of the mom he'll never know. He has her smile, her resilience, her fighting spirit. If you're watching this and you recognize your own relationship in Daja's story, please know there's help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, operates 24/7. They can connect you with local resources, safety planning, and emergency shelter. Domestic violence thrives in silence. It grows in the dark. The most powerful weapon against it is community. People who notice, who speak up, who offer help without judgment. Dajha Richards didn't have to die. Her story should haunt us all with one question: who around you right now is silently asking for help?